Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Barnaby Edwards, and our special guest here for sharing secrets to mobile and winning mobile strategies is Patrick McCormick, the VP of Mobile Sales and Strategy at The Weather Channel. A couple of quick notes before we get started. All of the attendees are in listen-only mode. But if you have questions during the webinar, you can post them in the GoToWebinar questions panel, and we'll address them during the session if it's appropriate, or we'll go through a list of questions right at the end. You can also post questions, comments, and feedback to Twitter with the hashtag #WinWithMobile, which we're promoting today. And for some further reading after the webinar is over, the oped.operative.com, our new blog, has an essential reading list for mobile of some news stories which we thought were exciting, and some essential reading materials related to the topic. The session is also being recorded, so if you find it valuable, it'll be posted on the website within a couple of days, so probably by the end of the week. So, as I mentioned, our guest today is Patrick McCormick, the VP of Mobile Sales and Strategy at The Weather Channel. Welcome, Patrick. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Barnaby. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for inviting me and The Weather Channel to participate today.
We're very happy to have you. My name's Barnaby Edwards, and I'm a product manager here at Operative, working to develop Operative One. So, we chose this topic for the webinar this month because mobile has become a very hot topic in the industry as a whole. Our starting point here is looking at the kinds of projections we're seeing, such as this from eMarketer, which has shown that mobile growth in terms of revenue has grown from 1.1 to 2.3 billion, or is projected to do so in 2012, with a lofty expectation of 10 billion by 2016. Does this fit in with how the Weather Channel is seeing growth within mobile, Pat?
Yeah, I think fortunately we are on a trend just like this at the Weather Channel. We've been fortunate to be in the middle of the mobile smartphone revolution that's been happening, and so yeah, we've seen the growth, and there's a number of things that we feel are critical that need to happen in the industry for us to move from the mark at 2.3 next year or this year to upwards of 10 billion. By 2016.
Sure, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of those as we move through today's discussion. So, can you tell me a little bit about how important mobile is to the Weather Channel and to its business?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's become really critical for the Weather Channel and our business. We really look at ourselves as now a mobile first company. In many ways, we're fortunate in that it seems that having a localized and personalized weather forecast on your smartphone has become a must-have application. So we look at new users of smartphones and see that in many cases the first thing they do is get connected to email, and the second thing is figure out how to get onto Facebook, and the third thing they do, unfortunately for us, is figure out how to get their weather data. And in increasing numbers, they're turning to the Weather Channel as a trusted brand and a provider on mobile and smartphone platforms. So that's really driven us to become a mobile-first company. In fact, according to ComScore, we're the #1 mobile content destination on the mobile internet, reaching nearly 40 million unique users each month on their mobile device. So I think stats like that are just a testament to how popular and how relevant weather content is within the mobile platforms.
Absolutely, and I think during our discussions earlier, you gave a fairly lofty number of total downloads.
Yeah, so right now we're about 86 million app downloads, life to date across many different mobile platforms, from iOS to Android, BlackBerry and Windows Phone, smartphones and tablets, and so we pride ourselves on being, everywhere that our users are, in many cases before our users even get there. So yeah, it's been a great success story so far.
And you've been in here for a long time, in this for a long time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think early on and long before my time at the company, we recognized that, weather and mobile were a great combination. And so, back in 1999, in a day where many companies didn't even have their first wired website, we were already launching our first mobile products. So as a mobile publisher, it's given us, a long time to understand what works in mobile and frankly, what doesn't. Plenty of learnings along the way. But yeah, we're really excited about what the future holds for the combination of mobile and weather.
So it's so key. It's been around for a long time. So they just give you whatever resources you need, right?
Well, no, I think just like any business, we're constantly challenged to justify our investments in mobile in particular. But at the Weather Channel, it's I think we take a pretty rigorous and diligent approach to proving out the return on the business. But I think that's really where the industry is as a whole, is really justifying the amount of resources and spend that are put into mobile as a platform. And so not just at Weather, but I think the industry as a whole really needs to think hard about how we prove return and how we prove ROI so that we can continue to fuel growth across the industry.
That makes sense. So you've got mobile. It's a really big part of your business. How do you integrate it into the overall digital product selling strategy? Is it its own component, or do you sell across all of your different methods of touching the consumer?
Yeah, it is separate and distinct in that we think it offers unique value proposition both to our users and to our advertisers, but certainly not siloed. So we think of mobile as one of mobile and tablet as really two of the four screens that we use to reach consumers today. Many people on this call probably recognize the Weather Channel as a brand that started on cable television, and so we continue to reach millions of users every month on through cable television. But we really see it as a cross-platform portfolio of options for our users and for our advertising clients.
Great. So I think it's interesting that you separate mobile from tablet, because a lot of the talk that happens within the industry is that a tablet's just a bigger cell phone sometimes. And I've seen people taking pictures with iPads in Times Square, and I always find it a little bit bizarre. But so can you talk a little bit about why they're separate for you and why you feel that way?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we recognize that the technology in many cases used to power both mobile and tablet, are similar technologies, but the user experience and the value proposition to the users and to our ad clients are totally different. Where mobile is focused kind of more on portability and convenience, and tablet more on kind of an immersive content experience and more of a lean back approach. So we program and develop for those platforms very differently. And like to keep them separate and not associate them directly just because of common technology.
Sure. And so, bringing them all together across all four screens, mobile when people are on the go, tablet when they're at home, and then web and cable at other times of the day, bringing them together makes the most sense for you rather than siloing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see it as many different ways to reach consumers, as they live their lives. The Weather Channel, we recognize our consumers turn to the Weather Channel not because in many cases they study or want to break down the science related to weather. They turn to the Weather Channel because of what they really care about, and whether that's their favorite sports team or their home and gardening hobby or their run after work or their kids' soccer practice. That's why people turn to us, and we want to be available on all platforms that our users are consuming, so that includes cable, mobile, tablet, and web.
Great. And so as we talk about these different areas, I think it's important to think about how they work through a person's daily life. And you've got a fascinating slide that you shared with us about how the usage of the Weather Channel changes during the day. If you could talk through this, I think that would be really interesting.
Sure, yeah. So this just goes back to the earlier point, Barnaby, about the fact that all platforms are critically important, and that we see mobile and tablet as as part of a portfolio. So what you see on the slide here are consumption trends based on the day part hour. So TV, we see peaks in the morning and levels out during daytime while folks are off at work, and then rises again in the evening when they're home from work, and then peaks during prime time viewing hours. We see sort of a related but complementary trend for web, where the trough of traffic on television is replaced by web usage when people are at work during the day. And mobile, which is that darker blue line that just animated in, we really see a peak first thing in the morning. And what's interesting about that is, consumers we know are actually turning to their smartphones, which are plugged in on their nightstands, in many cases now serving as their alarm clocks. And so we know the first thing they're doing in the morning is probably turning off the alarm clock, flipping open some email, and then checking the weather to figure out how to live their life that day. So we see peak consumption in the morning hours, and then this kind of steady state, always on throughout the day, somewhere between television and web, throughout the rest of the day, which is really interesting.
Yeah, and I think we're going to then layer in, because I completely identify with the mobile experience, because I don't have a window that I can see the weather outside, so I rely on the cell phone in the morning, which is my alarm clock.
That's right.
But then tablet's quite different.
Yeah, and so that you see the similar morning spike in consumption when people are waking up and planning their day. But what's interesting about tablet, as it stands apart from the other platforms, is that it really is an at-home, in the evening, on the couch type of device. And so we know people are tuning in to watch some original programming on the Weather Channel in the evening, and they're also using the tablet app to figure out how tomorrow looks and the rest of the week looks for them.
So I'm sure armed with this kind of information, you can you can tailor the kinds of messages that you're sending at different times of day to different kind of platforms.
Yeah, this chart is exactly why we look at mobile and tablet as part of a portfolio of offerings, and not necessarily standalone platforms, because we believe that detailed understanding of how consumers interact with content is critical to figuring out how you get the right message to the right user at the right time of day.
Great. So, how do you find that it performs? Because that's really the key, isn't it? It's all very well delivering things, but as you mentioned earlier, you've got to still prove the return on investment to the business and to your advertisers.
Yep. No, absolutely. And I think I'll continue to stress that, just to because I know we're focused on it here at the Weather Channel, but I'd ask others in the industry to help us move the industry along by focusing on ROI. But I think when you look at performance of mobile campaigns, there's a lot of variables to take into consideration, and I don't necessarily think comparing mobile media versus standard display internet media is kind of an either-or value proposition. Right now, the industry, I think for the most part, is focused on click-through rate as its primary KPI. But I think at the Weather Channel, we're trying to look for other ways to prove to our clients that there is value in mobile marketing beyond simply click-through. There are other engagement metrics to measure against advertising. For instance, brand exposure is one of those. But I think I think what's critical to trying to distinguish mobile from other mediums in the marketing mix is to really drill in on location. And so the use of location data in mobile marketing is really a key distinguishing factor now, with 100 million people in the U.S. with smartphones in their pockets, and our ability to identify their latitude and longitude to deliver more relevant and contextual marketing. I think it's critical that as an industry we figure out how to in a privacy-friendly and safe way leverage a user's location to deliver more effective and contextual advertising.
Absolutely, and also advertising that they can see. You talked earlier about alternative metrics to click through. Our Operative has also been doing some work with Comscore on the whole value of the viewable impression, which we did a webinar on last month. And I think that in mobile, and I think you'd agree, right, the viewable impressions are incredibly important to helping the industry grow.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's especially important in mobile where you've got other factors in the mix like network connectivity, and so the quality of the network connection on a 3G network versus a 2G network versus Wi-Fi, the quality of network connection can affect speed and performance, and so moving the industry towards something that's that's measured more on viewable impression, I think is the right idea to take some of that noise out of the equation.
Oh, absolutely. I'm living in New York. I'm very well aware of how the cell phone signal can change from block to block.
Yep, absolutely.
Infamously. So we talked a little bit about metrics. We know that you've had these this incredibly high number of downloads, 86 million, I think you said. You've got a lot of different ways of distributing on mobile. You've got the free app, you've got the mobile site, and I think you've got a premium premium component to the app as well. What's the Weather Channel's view regarding distribution over mobile?
Sure. I mean, I think it's in our 10+ years of of mobile publishing, with some success in delivering distribution across many different platforms. I think what we've come to the conclusion of is that there's really no right answer. It depends on what the consumer needs and preferences are. So some of the trends that we see at Weather, and this may not apply to all publishers, but certainly trends that stand out at the Weather Channel. Most of our usage comes across free apps. We also do have an m.weather.com HTML5 powered mobile website, and then we also offer paid features for folks who want a deeper, richer content experience. So I think we've experimented with all these, and we've made them all available to our consumers, and we've essentially let the consumer, the user, vote with their choice.
Right. So which seems to be the way to go, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, let the users decide. So what we've seen though is that at the Weather Channel, and we believe this is due to the frequency of use. We have a statistic that says that, on the iPhone, for instance, our average iPhone user comes to the Weather Channel 27 times a month, and that makes sense because of the kind of daily need for weather content and information. And so, our users have told us that they prefer the app platform because of that frequency of use. It's easy to find it on their phone and on their home screen. They simply just have to find the icon to launch the weather app, and there it is, as opposed to launching a browser and typing in a URL or finding a bookmark.
Absolutely. Do you find something similar on the Android, or have you only really done the research in iOS?
No, it's true across all mobile platforms. So the majority of our consumption on mobile comes through the app platform, but then we know that there are many users who who are conditioned to go into weather.com, and so we make our content available through a mobile optimized website as well.
Yeah, I was talking to someone about this webinar earlier this week, and they mentioned that they thought that your 27 times a day was low for that person anyway.
Yeah, so it speaks to the daily usage, and in some cases, multiple times per day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So obviously being in the app business is effective, but there are challenges there, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think like any publisher on the call would acknowledge they're developing native apps for multiple mobile platforms is a challenge on resources. It's just there's a lot of overhead required to the different technologies involved. So we do most of our development in-house, but also find in some cases it's effective to partner to get our content and our brand onto certain platforms. So a combination of in-house investment and partnerships has gotten us there. But no question that being in the app business, it can be challenging at times given the resources required.
And you're on all the major platforms, right? So that's at least 4 or more, probably.
Yeah, we're on all the major platforms and some not so major as well.
Coming back to being in the right place where the consumer wants you.
Yep, that's right.
So, no, you've got the app, which means you can get anywhere, which of course means that you're getting into local. And you talked a little bit earlier about how local is basically the most the key. You feel like local addressing local correctly is one of the key ways that we can get to that 10 billion. So, is local the coolest kid on the block? Is it everything it's made out to be?
Yeah, I mean, we think it's really important. I don't know if coolest kid on the block, but it is critically important as we think about ways to distinguish mobile as a part of the marketing mix. I think understanding the user's location and their context, is really important to delivering the right message at the right time, and we think it makes it relevant. So, at the Weather Channel, we call ourselves the number one location-based service company. And I think if anybody has used our app, you know that in order to get your weather forecast or any weather content, you need to identify your location either by zip code or by city name or by a lat long, like locate me through my GPS on my phone. And so we engage with users across essentially a network of 40,000 zip code specific mobile apps or sites. And so we have tremendous local reach, but a national brand that really ties all of that local reach together, in a trusted way. And so, we think, and our users, they don't mind, engaging with us. In fact, they've given us and granted us permission to engage with them at a local level. And so, we help them plan and live more meaningful lives, at the local level every day in the places they live and work. But we know that that's a part of a value exchange for the consumer, and so our consumers have told us that's good value for them. That to let us know where they're located gives them a meaningful content experience, and then in many cases allows us to offer more targeted content and advertising that we think increases the relevance of that.
Right, and because that's a very delicate balance, isn't it? I mean, it's really become possibly the most personal device that we own now. I often use the example talking about the cell phone is that, you might show someone a picture on your cell phone, but you probably don't hand it to them to look at it.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I think, we go out of our way to make sure that, all users understand, our use of location. It's disclosed in all of our terms and privacy. There's an affirmative opt-in, when you open our website or app. So, we don't take that trust lightly. We think that's really critical just to the industry, not just at the Weather Channel, but all publishers need to treat that the concept of location, use of location, very carefully. And we believe it's really a self-policing model that can be successful here. To gain the user's trust and make sure that we're delivering relevant and useful experiences that generate value.
I'm sure that the consumers let you know loud and clear if it hasn't started to do that.
Absolutely.
But so local, it's very important to have a good value exchange with it. But it does let you get some very engaging creative. I think we've got a really interesting example of how a local campaign combined with the look and feel of a mobile tablet or phone can make some really exciting creative coming up.
Yeah, so at the Weather Channel, we one of the things we do to leverage the local context that we use to engage our users is to generate locally relevant ad creative. So here's an example from a project we worked on with Weston. And not only did we generate some creative for Weston that was localized to the user's location, but was also weather triggered. So weather triggering is a type of creative execution, and you can kind of see it depicted here on the slide where the user used their hand just to wipe away the weather. In this case, it was raining in a particular user's location. So we only served this ad to this user in a rainy situation, and we invited them to wipe away the weather to reveal warm weather, sunny weather destinations that were kind of the opposite of maybe the bad weather that they were experiencing, in their local area. And so, the resorts that Weston featured here were even, really locally relevant to, let's say, somebody on the East Coast versus somebody on the West Coast. So the concept of bringing location directly into into the ad creative, and then further making it more relevant with the use of weather triggering, we think is a really interesting best practice. It's delivered incredible results for us and for our clients.
It certainly seems like it takes full advantage of all of the local characteristics as well as the unique nature of weather, so to speak. And I love the fact that you're actually engaging with the wiping things away, utilizing the touch screen.
Yeah, no, this was a really successful campaign for us. In fact, Ad Age named it one of the 10 most important mobile moments of last year. Got a lot of coverage in the media, and so we encourage our clients, all the time to follow the lead on great campaigns like this, and leverage the unique capabilities of a mobile device or a tablet device, and engage the user locally, with content and creative that's relevant, in this case, driven by weather.
So you've got all this great technology, all this great creative. Then you've got to produce it, right? So I know whether you have a single technology stack for executing all of these things. Was there some reasons for doing it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think our approach on the ad tech side is, we're in the process now of moving to a single technology platform. For a couple of things, I think it offered us some benefits around reduced overhead and single dashboard for reporting, which we go back to the philosophy of treating mobile and tablet as part of a portfolio of a cross-platform media company, and so we want our reports to be standardized across a single technology provider, and we just saw the reduced overhead and consolidated reporting as one benefit to approaching a single tech stack.
Yeah, I mean, those are a lot of the types of benefits that Operative tries to help our publisher clients to gain as well from having one platform for executing your ad business. Obviously, there are specialists out there. There are mobile specialist ad servers, and there are your generic your big ad servers that the DFPs and the ad techs of the world. Who are able to provide mobile ad serving technologies in addition to that. It sounds like you feel that the ability to be able to execute from one technology stack and maybe balance the different platforms that you're reaching the consumer on, dialing up and dialing down a campaign as you go along, is more valuable maybe than utilizing those specialists.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've used both approaches. The best of breed approach is somewhere where we started, and really by necessity. I think before many of these mobile optimized tools were available in the marketplace. But we think with the arrival of more than 50% of mobile phone users now being on the smartphone platform, the mainstream arrival of mobile as a media platform has really forced the ad technology community to add features and functionality that support mobile in particular. So we're starting to see the features that that we require to run our mobile business in some of the standard platforms, and so we made a decision to move to a common set of technologies. But yeah, that's the way we see it.
Of course, and having that common technology able to take advantage of the innovations helps bring around that convergence, right?
Absolutely.
So here's the big question that we promised an answer to at the beginning. How do you, and we've dropped some hints along the way here, I think. That was a pretty lofty number, 10 billion, 2 billion to 10 billion in 4 years, and I'm sure we've all seen projections like that before, which have fallen far short. Do you think we can get there, and if so, how?
Yeah, I mean, I think we, or at least I personally think this is kind of like once in a career type opportunity for us, all to grow an industry that's in its early days right now, but and certainly has some challenges ahead. But the promise of reaching consumers with the right content and the right marketing message in the right context is has never been this accessible as it is with mobile. And so, at Weather, because we've been in mobile for so long, and because we hold a leadership position in the mobile marketplace, we're focused on some of the macro level trends to try to unlock the value of the mobile ad industry. And so, we've outlined a few of those here, as part of this presentation and discussion. By no means have we got all these figured out, but I think, in our view, these are some of the things that need to fall into place for mobile marketing to really accelerate, to get from that $2 billion this year to over $10 billion and beyond. And so, the first one on the list, I think, and we've talked a little bit about this, is ROI and measurement. I mean, this simply comes back to we need, as mobile experts, to convince marketers that that mobile is a platform that can outperform and outdeliver, other mediums in the marketing mix. And that I think at Weather we're very focused on being transparent on performance and kind of post-campaign reporting. It's critically important that as an industry we study the mobile impact on brand metrics and purchase intent. So we're focused on all these things, and I'd encourage everybody on the call to continue to try to prove ROI, because I think without that proof and without that data, as time goes on, marketers are becoming more and more dependent on data and proof to justify their investments. And so we think number one on the list is proof of ROI and measurement.
Absolutely, and building a common language within that, I think, is also going to be important, because it's not going to help if one publisher is looking at it one way and other publishers are looking at other ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and I think the concept of standards comes up certainly down the list as well.
No, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, creativity. We all know that mobile smartphones, while a great way to engage with users through content and advertising, also is a very limited creative canvas. And so, if we asked ourselves, as an industry as a whole, have we done our best work on being creative on the mobile platform? I think the resounding answer is going to be no. And I think as an industry we need to challenge ourselves around new and creative ways to kind of break through the noise and the clutter on mobile. Some of the whack-a-mole type banners I don't necessarily think are the things that are going to get it done for the industry. So at Weather in particular, we've got a dedicated mobile creative team who helps our clients come up with new concepts like Wipe Away Your Weather to break through on mobile and reach the consumer with real impact. So that I think is a challenge for the industry as a whole, and at Weather we're trying to do our part.
Right, but of course with creativity it becomes fragmentation of different ways of doing things, and so I think that takes us to the third thing that you feel the industry should really be focused on as well, the delicate balance between creativity and standardization.
It is. I mean, in some ways those two things are opposed, so it's kind of interesting to put them on a list side by side, but it is threading that needle between generating creative that delivers the right message in a unique way, in an impactful way, in a relevant way, but also through standards that the industry can adopt and that are scalable. I think it's easy to come up with one-off, or not easy, it's easier to come up with creative concepts that that work on a one-off or ad hoc basis, but what we really need as an industry is to standardize and and add some scale to the business. So we at the Weather Channel are very active with organizations like the IAB and their Rising Stars program, with the MMA and the Mobile Marketing Association, with others studying ad formats to try to standardize and really fuel the industry.
I mean, I think we've got to go beyond the 300 by 50 to something that maybe is more engaging for users. And one of those, the IAB ad units, the Rising Stars standards that they just announced, I think are a good step forward with that. And I think you helped with one of those, right?
Yeah. So the Weather Channel was a winner in the slider category with an ad unit called Sideswiper, which is a variation of a mobile banner, that many of our clients have adopted, and it allows the user to swipe horizontally across a banner to reveal other frames or other parts of the banner that aren't initially visible. And so that's, things like that have helped clients break through on mobile. And so, we're really supportive of standards like that.
Great. So, I mean, so creativity and standardization are sort of odd bedfellows to be on this list. And then the last two things on your list, I think, also go quite closely together, beginning with that bugbear, I guess, of the industry as a whole, which we touched on, which I guess is covering, it covers digital from soup to nuts, really, and that's the whole privacy and targeting components and challenges that face us all.
Yeah, no, and that's we touched upon this a little earlier, but I think, yeah, this concept that mobile scale and reaching a mass mobile audience these days, it isn't enough anymore for marketers. They need to know that they can reach at the Weather Channel, for instance, within our universe of 40 million monthly uniques. Clients are demanding that they be able to reach their audience. They don't want to just reach the mass scale. So targeting is something that the marketplace has demanded. But we need to do that in a very privacy-friendly way to make sure that we don't step over the line in the level of targeting that we do. And so earlier I mentioned disclosures and self-policing, and a really privacy-safe and trusted approach is going to be critical here.
Sure, and I think that the last item on your list also feeds into that as well. There's an education component to that, educating consumers about what that targeting and that relevance really means.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons that the Weather Channel likes to through partnerships like Operative is to hold sessions like this, is really just to get the word out about what's possible and how successful you can be on the mobile platform, both as a publisher and as a marketer. And I think just evangelization and education across the industry and getting the word out about things that work, is just going to help us, fuel growth for mobile.
Sure. I mean, it's educating people and having lots and lots of publishers adopting the same kinds of best practices is going to make it a more successful industry for all of us, I think.
Absolutely.
So we're coming towards the end of our time. I think we've got some key takeaways here, and there's a few questions in the pipe. So let's just talk through a few of the key takeaways. I think that for weather, especially when you've got your 4 screens, and I'm sure other publishers also have various screens and ways of reaching their consumers, it's important to consider mobile as part of that whole portfolio. Partly because the consumption by platform is so different by time of day. There was a question a little bit earlier about that chart and how it was measuring. It was really measuring the percentage of time by hour of the day on each device, right? So a higher percentage of overall device consumers are using the iPad at night rather than some of the other things.
That's
rather
right.
Than being related to revenue, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's percentage by time of day.
Right.
So percent of total. Yep.
So that consumption makes it very important to that difference in consumption makes it very important to sort of integrate so you can dial up and dial down as necessary. The trust thing is absolutely essential. Making sure that the value proposition that you offer customers in exchange for consumers rather in exchange for the in exchange for what you're giving in exchange for what you're sort of selling in terms of advertising needs to be there. It's sort of that unspoken thing, isn't it? Of I know I'm going to get advertised to, provided you're giving me value.
Absolutely.
Localization localization is helping to spur innovation and creative, and innovation and creative is absolutely critical if we're going to deliver results and find ROI. And looking at different kinds of ways to measure ROI. And then finally, I think we've got that key point that we just ended on. Publishers should work together, share successes, which will educate the market and grow it for all of us. So there's a couple of questions in the pipe, and please feel free, anybody, to submit more if you've got them. The first one is okay, what did I just do there? There was one about in terms of it goes back to I think the privacy and the building a trusted relationship piece again. Are there thresholds in terms of the amounts of ads that you found that tend to have led you to see a decrease in usage? Have you sort of observed trends in that that area?
Yeah, I don't think I don't know that we measured in the amount of ads, but we we look carefully at our ad footprint in all of our mobile products to make sure that for instance we we like to create a kind of a clean separation between the advertising and our content in some cases to to kind of give the user the chance to engage with one or the other as they'd like to. I think one of the best practices we've noticed is that consumers are more receptive to ads at the completion of a task. So an example would be at the end of our 10-day forecast. Let's say people are looking for the weekend weather and they turn to our 10-day forecast to get that information. At the end of the 10-day forecast, we have an ad unit that performs real well, and I think there has something to do with the psychology of a user who comes in to complete a task, and when they're completed with that task, they move on to the next thing in their mind, and I think that's where they're receptive to marketing and advertising, especially if it's relevant to them. So
that makes a lot of sense, and I think it goes along a little bit with goes with that whole give to get type of mentality.
Yep. So I think we look for opportunities to put ads in places where we think our users will be receptive to them, in an organic and relevant way.
We've got an interesting question here that I actually don't know very much about either. What do you have recommendations for remnant space in mobile? Is that something you use or experimented with?
In remnant?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean we do have some remnant inventory, and so part of our job is to figure out how to effectively monetize that. There's no shortage of options through ad networks and other third parties who are happy to take some of that inventory and how monetize it. What we see is that kind of comes back at much lower rates than what what you typically get by selling directly to premium marketers. I would characterize where we're at today as kind of in experimentation mode. So we integrate with a handful of third parties to see where maybe there's an uptick in monetization opportunities, but it's certainly not a focus of what we're doing at Weather. We're really a direct sales organization. We've got a team of 10 mobile sellers across the U.S. who are located regionally and focused on bringing creative and integrated advertising concepts to premium marketers. So that's really the focus of our business, but there's a lot of remnant opportunity out there.
So you've got people all over the country. We talked a lot about local and how important that was earlier. Question here about when you're targeting, are you targeting usually where the consumer is, or based upon where they're researching? Because of course those kind of things can be different, or does it really depend on the campaign?
It's campaign specific. So we call the type of targeting, we call it contextual targeting, to target ads at a location that is somewhere other than where the user is physically located. So you may be looking at a vacation in Florida but be physically located in New York. We know that from our platform based on the data that comes back to us, and so we can support both levels of targeting, both the physical location of the user and where they may be researching.
So we talked a little bit about measurement earlier. We've got another question here about you've done click rate. We already talked about brand effectiveness studies. Have you got any other metrics which have been really successful for you that you're able to share?
Well, one is an interesting one that we're taking a close look at now is audience exposure. And so through some new technology that we've recently launched for the marketplace, we've got an ad product that's called hyper-local audience targeting. And essentially, without any presentation material, I'll do my best to describe it. But it's essentially identifying the physical location of a user from the GPS in their phone. So in other words, their latitude and longitude, and using that data to infer who they're likely to be. In other words, what audience are they from? Are they a business traveler? Are they a college student? Are they a mom? What audience do they fall into? And so you can infer a lot about who somebody's likely to be based upon where they're physically located on a specific day at a specific time. And so because we've got the ability to target on our mobile platform at this audience level, we've actually started to share with some of our clients audience exposure reports. So, let's say a beverage company may be trying to target on-the-go males with their latest soda offering, and instead we recognize that their campaign really resonated with shopper moms, and that's an audience that they didn't really intend to reach in the first place. But those sorts of insights as a marketer are incredibly valuable, which allow you to go back and understand, well, what in the campaign led this to resonate with soccer moms as opposed to on-the-go males, and then should we be marketing to soccer moms, or do we need to change our campaign to be more relevant to the audience that we were targeting in the first place? So I think mobile as a platform, and sorry, I know that's sort of a convoluted example, but difficult to explain over the phone, but I think the concept of using location and then inferring audience are just other ways to look at the performance of mobile ad campaigns and hopefully deliver marketing insights that weren't possible beforehand.
And presumably it helps you set prices and figure out how you're going to charge, and whether you can charge more, and how that all works as well.
Yeah, I mean, it does deliver a lot of value back to the marketer for sure. So these capabilities like hyper-local audience targeting are things that have launched relatively recently. So if anybody's interested in learning more, I think we may provide some contact information on one of these slides. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're just about out of questions here that I think you're going to be able to talk about. There's a few questions about revenue, which people can either contact you directly and you can deal with that, because I think we discussed that was off the table. So that actually brings us to the end of our time for today. So our last slide here is the contact information as promised. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I hope that you found this to be valuable and there's some useful information here. And above all, I'd like to thank you, Patrick, for your time this afternoon and for sharing all of your insights.
Yeah, thanks, Barnaby. It was a pleasure. And yeah, if anybody has any further questions, feel free to reach out. And thanks, everybody, for participating today.
Thanks, everybody.